Welcome to Holy Heartbeats. My name is Nathan, and I narrate Christ-centered testimonies from all over the world. These testimonies include rapture and end-times visions, near-death experiences, encounters with angels and demons, God, Jesus, and even Satan himself. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you are fond of listening to these types of stories, and let me know what you think about these testimonies in the comments section below. Furthermore, for those who want to share their personal testimonies, visions, and revelations from God, you can send us your own stories at holyheartbeat7@gmail.com. I will be very honored to read your testimony, which may inspire, edify, and encourage a lot of people in their personal journey of faith with the Lord Jesus Christ. The Disney Bloodline, Part 5. The Osmond Brothers. Merrill Osmond's sons were discovered at Disneyland during a visit in 1962. The Disney staff on Main Street just happened to recognize the talent of the 5 boys and quickly signed them to their first professional singing contract. The Osmond brothers made several television appearances for Disneyland, including Meet Me at Disneyland and Disneyland After Dark. Considering the mind control programming allegedly inflicted on these Osmond children, these TV shows were a cruel joke. Among the singing Osmond siblings, Donnie is the second youngest, and his sister Marie is the youngest. Both Donnie and Marie are said to be programmed multiples who have been subjected to extensive abuse. They possess strong front alters. Their father has reportedly made millions from drugs, pornography, and white slavery, and is claimed to be part of the Mormon Illuminati front. The Mormon faction of the Illuminati has benefited from the positive publicity surrounding the Osmonds. The brothers performed for Andy Williams, whose French wife was once arraigned on murder charges. Later, they sang on the Satanic network's Lawrence Welk show. Swedish-accented Lawrence Welk has been linked to this network. Marie Osmond has grown up, and despite a busy singing schedule that includes approximately 200 performances a year, often at locations like Mafia-controlled Atlantic City, she has adopted 3 of her 5 children. In occult families, adopted children are frequently programmed, suggesting that her children may also have been programmed. Michael Ovitz. Ovitz was the number 2 man at Walt Disney for a time until near the end of 1996. He was a high school classmate in Van Nuys, California, with Michael Milken, later known as the Junk Bond Wizard. Many of the same individuals are connected to both men. When Ovitz's National Mercantile Bancorp, a savings and loan, became entangled in lawsuits and scandals, attorney Robert Strauss represented him. Illuminati member Robert Strauss has been a lawyer linked to drug trafficking and the Mafia. He was also an FBI agent from 1941 to 1945 under J. Edgar Hoover. Strauss is admitted to the Washington, D.C. bar. President Bush appointed him U.S. ambassador to Russia. He has served on the boards of directors for the Illuminati's PepsiCo, Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, and General Instruments. He was also a board member of the Illuminati Mafia-run MCA. Strauss is considered a powerful behind-the-scenes broker in Washington, D.C. Strauss represented Ronald O. Perlman, chairman of Revlon and an associate of Michael Milken, who made $600 million from the first Gibraltar savings and loan scandal. He also represented MCA, which the Bronfmans took over in 1995. The book, Stiffed. The true story of MCA, the music business, and the Mafia thoroughly connects MCA to the mob, the network, and Iran-Contra. A Time magazine article from February 1997 detailed Ovitz's departure from Disney, describing him spending time on his yacht, The Illusion, visiting Joe Silver's estate in South Carolina, his property in Aspen, Colorado, and having lunch with investment advisor Richard Salomon of Spears, Benzac, Salomon, and Farrell. Gordon Crawford of the Capital Group praised Ovitz and expressed willingness to invest in his ventures. Ovitz is widely believed to have mafia ties. Vanity Fair reported in December 1996 that Ovitz threatened producer Bernie Brillstein with his foot soldiers. The San Francisco Chronicle quoted the Columbia Journalism Review about reporter Anita Bush, who was investigating Ovitz and reportedly became violently ill from MSG in her food during an interview. Ovitz followed up by sending her a gift-wrapped package of MSG with the one-word note, "Enjoy." Ovitz has had the influence to negotiate directly with Illuminati kingpin Edgar Bronfman. He successfully requested that Bronfman keep his father employed, which was done. Edgar Bronfman Jr. seriously considered Ovitz to head Seagram's MCA or Universal Conglomerate. Frank G. Wells. Frank Wells was the president and chief operating officer of the Walt Disney Company and served on Disney's board of directors. A Rhodes Scholar and lawyer since 1955, Wells worked closely with Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg. The Rhodes Scholars are known to have connections with the Illuminati. Wells died in a helicopter crash while heli-skiing in Nevada in the spring of 1994. His surviving sister, Molly Wells Chappelle, is active in Illuminati circles. She has been featured several times in Betty Knight Scrip's magazine Appellation. Betty Knight Scrip was married to a member of Bohemian Grove and was close friends with the late Pamela Harriman, a former U.S. ambassador to France with Rothschild connections, as well as with Her Imperial Highness the Grand Duchess of Vladimir of Russia, owner of Chateau Margaux in Bordeaux. Betty Scripps personally oversees content in Appellation, including her column, Who's Who in the Wine Country, where the Chapelet family has appeared multiple times. Nearly all of Disney's movies from the 1920s featured a black cat, and many had occult themes woven into their scripts. This occult slant has persisted in Disney's themes throughout the years. Some of Disney's blatantly occult movies include Aladdin. A wisecracking, all-powerful genie is featured. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, 1971. A witch discovers a magic formula from a Lion King. The formula raises a ghostly army of armored warriors in a museum, which stops a band of German commandos. Beyond Witch Mountain, 1982. A pair of twins leave Witch's Mountain and must use their special occult powers to outwit a character named Duranian. The Black Cauldron, 1985. A horned king uses magic to fight a clairvoyant pig and its keeper. Despite a $25 million budget, the film was a box office failure. Bride of Boogedy, 1987. An evil spirit visits the Davis family and places the father under a spell. Directed by Oz Scott. Child of Glass, 1978. A glass doll must be found to set a ghost free in a haunted house. The Gnome Mobile, 1967. A multimillionaire and his grandchildren encounter gnomes. In the end, the multimillionaire deeds the forest to the gnomes for eternity. Halloween Hall of Fame, 1977. Jack-o'-lanterns come to life. Halloween Treat, 1982. A collection of cartoons about Halloween. This was followed the next year by Haunted Halloween, which explored the origins of Halloween. The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, 1964. A genius tries to help other students and attempts to use hypnotism and ESP, but these efforts backfire on him. The Richest Cat in the World, 1986. A wealthy man leaves his fortune to his cat, which the relatives later discover can talk. H. Disney and its mob connections. When this author spoke to the co-authors' deeper Illuminati alters about Disney, their reaction was that Disney had been described to them while they were in the Illuminati as a syndicate within a syndicate. They explained that Disneyland had its own government, its own rules, and its own police force. It was essentially a crime syndicate operating within a larger syndicate. What these Illuminati alters casually mentioned was confirmed by this author through extensive research. One Disneyland security supervisor stated, "There is no constitution at Disneyland. We have our own laws." On one occasion, when Walt Disney was upset with a Hollywood policeman, he reportedly said, "I'll have your badge." If Disney guards decide to act, They can be physically rough and assault people in any manner they choose. Those they detain are often confined in tiny cells at Disneyland without access to a phone, toilet, or water. The judicial system routinely turns a blind eye to Disney police actions. Many pay Disney to secure the release of their children from these cells and never receive due process of law. This type of treatment has been ongoing for decades and is almost a daily occurrence at Disneyland. The Anaheim Police Department maintains a close relationship with the Disney private police force. At one time, the Burbank chief of police was the brother-in-law of Disney's chief of security. Recently, when a couple filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Disney's Magic Kingdom in Florida, the state appeared to step back from its usual protection of Disney's sovereignty. An article covering the suit noted evidence of some nervousness regarding Disney's relative autonomy. An attorney involved in the case said, "Disney World's security people aren't just cops, they are bad ones. I don't think there is any corporation that has ever had the perceived power that Disney has." Richard Fogelsong, a politics professor at Rollins College in Winter Park, stated, "Because Disney World controls so much of its corporate and municipal universe, it can't help but act in a heavy-handed manner to ferociously protect its self-interest. They have immunity from state and local land use laws. They can build a nuclear plant, distribute alcohol. They have powers local communities don't have. Do they abuse it? In my opinion, yes." In keeping with Disney's previous authoritarian policies on their properties, the new city called Celebration will not have an elected government. Since the city is unincorporated, a clever Disney maneuver, the mayor is appointed by Disney. Several Disney quasi-government bodies control the city's residents. For example, the Celebration Residential Owners Association binds all residents to a Declaration of Covenants, a legal document outlining rules that residents must obey. Of course, this declaration was written by Disney. These rules include such nitpicky restrictions as no more than 2 people sleeping in the same bedroom, no parking pickup trucks in front of homes, and if Disney officials dislike your cat or dog, they can forcibly remove the animal from your property. Disney Corporation has perpetrated numerous deceptions on residents, including shoddy workmanship on homes and operating their so-called public school, staffed with Disney cronies. Still, residents who have moved into Celebration often praise the town, despite it being completely run by Big Brother Disney Corporation. Of course, those who do not approve soon leave. So much for the American tradition of self-government. Traditionally, mob crime bosses held yearly summits. In 1928, the conclave was in Cleveland. In 1929, it was held secretly in Atlantic City. And in 1931, they gathered at Wappingers Falls, New York. The 1931 meeting was attended by approximately 300 overlords and soldiers. At Wappingers Falls, the heads of crime families discussed their agendas and decided where the first National Mafia Convention would be held. Once the Mafia was able to hold these private annual meetings, they coordinated their activities and made decisions on such matters as 1. The direction of national and internal operations and long-range plans. 2. The promotion of new bosses. 3. Decisions on turf, rank, commodities, and cash. 4. Hashing out alliances or disputes with groups such as the Mishpaka, Triads, FBI, Illuminati, and working with others in a coordinated manner. The Mafia clans would then leave the annual summits and implement decisions in their territories until the next year's meeting, where they reviewed successes and failures, received new assignments, and set new short and long-term goals. In 1927, the Mishpaka collaborated with the Mafia to hijack a bootleg shipment of whiskey traveling from Ireland to Boston for the Kennedy Illuminati family. Most of Kennedy's guards were killed in the ensuing shootout, leaving the widows seeking financial assistance from J.P. Kennedy. Billy Graham's close friend, Mafia Chief Joseph Bonanno, was one of the chiefs attending these yearly conclaves. He also met with John F. Kennedy in the winter of 1959. Kennedy was known to have acknowledged mobster Sam Giancana as working for his family. The alliances and infighting between the mob and Illuminati are too complex to cover here, But both groups had to enact plans in response to the repeal of prohibition, which ended their lucrative bootlegging. The short-term mafia strategy was to control the Hollywood film industry and penetrate unions more deeply. Long-term plans involved educating their next generations at elite schools and securing positions in respectable corporate roles. By mastering legitimate business operations, they could blend illegal activities with legal fronts and appear legitimate. They also aimed to expand their influence into politics, prestigious business schools such as Harvard and Stanford, and the highest levels of corporate boards. They intended, and have succeeded, in having some of their offspring produce and direct television shows and films. Their influence within the Bohemian Grove membership, as well as in other prominent social and business clubs, continued to grow. Their plan to take over the film industry relied heavily on controlling the unions and theaters. The Chicago mob controlled the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees Union, including the Projectionists Union. If filmmakers had their movies' theaters shut down, what use would it be to produce films? Both the filmmakers and the mafia possessed power and money. Rather than engage in a prolonged conflict, they reached an agreement. The major studios would pay the mafia approximately $50,000 a year, and the smaller studios $25,000 in exchange for permission to operate. Additional agreements were also made. Mob henchmen Willie Bioff and George E. Brown, both mob lieutenants, orchestrated the mob's Hollywood takeover. Time magazine wrote, "In the witness chair in Manhattan's federal court sat bland, wily Willie Bioff, blackmailer, panderer, labor leader, and now star witness against 8 ex-pals charged with shaking down $1 million from the movie industry." Question: was it true that Bioff once had a 5-year plan for taking over 20% of Hollywood's profits, and eventually 50% interest in the studios themselves? Bioff, wistfully, "If we'd lasted that long, we would have." Question: did you ever say you were boss of Hollywood and could make producers do whatever you wanted? Bioff: yes, and I could make them dance to my tune. Although Bioff turned on his associates and ended up being targeted in a car bombing, the mafia and Mishpucha infiltration and control of Hollywood persisted. Bioff had attempted to salvage his public image by helping Walt Disney settle his labor dispute with the mob-led unions. However, Disney wisely rejected Bioff's offer of help and carefully avoided offending the Chicago mob leaders, who were disgruntled with Bioff. Hundreds of millions of dollars were funneled by the mafia and Mishpucha into Southern California real estate, often laundered through legitimate local businessmen. Hollywood was declared a free zone, where all mafia and Mishpucha families could operate without fear of turf wars. Backtracking slightly to 1930. Columbia distributed Disney cartoons from 1930 until 1932, when Disney switched to United Artists because Columbia was failing to pay what it owed. In 1930, Harry Cohn, president of Columbia Pictures, helped Disney out of financial trouble by intimidating Disney's business partner, Powers, with street toughs during a legal dispute. If Disney wasn't indebted to the mafia before, he was certainly under their control at that point. Biographers have long been puzzled by Disney's severe depression following Cohn's intervention. Tough guy Harry Cohn made it clear to Walt who was boss. His attitude was that Walt should be grateful to be paid at all for the cartoons he supplied Columbia. Following this episode, Walt would lock himself in his room and weep uncontrollably for hours. He became difficult to get along with, unable to focus, often staring out the window for long periods. Some biographers attribute Walt's behavior to his wife's pregnancy and the defection of his friend and animator Ub Iwerks to another company. Frankly, Walt had treated Iwerks poorly and must have understood why Iwerks left such an abusive relationship. To claim Walt wept for hours daily simply because he was about to become a father strains credibility. Years later, Walt attributed his depression to the stress of the financial situation. He said, "I had a nervous breakdown. Costs were going up. Each new picture we finished cost more to make than we had figured it would earn when we first began to plan it. I cracked up." This author submits that part of Walt's breakdown may have been due to the financial pressure and control exerted by the Mafia. They had the means to make or break him, leaving him no choice but to surrender to their overwhelming power, either to be blackmailed and destroyed or to leave the business altogether. This placed Walt in a painful conflict between his two strongest traits: his obsession to be his own boss and his creative drive to produce animation tied deeply to his ego, phobias, and psychological needs. His mind could not relinquish either independence or creativity without great anguish, and he was deeply saddened to admit defeat and submit to the demands of the powerful Mafia. Just when he needed emotional support, his wife was expecting a child, and his best animator had left. Walt had abandoned iWorks years earlier, and his wife had long desired a child. Neither iWorks' departure nor the impending birth alone explain Walt's intense nervous breakdown. Biographers note Walt was reluctant to have children and was impotent much of the time, including with his wife. This may help explain his secret sexual habits. Walt's Masonic brother Carl Laemmle offered assistance to help Walt recover from Harry Cohn's abusive control, but Laemmle demanded the copyright to Mickey Mouse in exchange. Walt refused to give up Mickey. Instead, Walt signed a contract with Joseph Schenck of United Artists, a Mafia-linked illegal drug kingpin. In 1935, Schenck founded 20th Century Inc., which merged with Fox in 1938 to form 20th Century Fox, whose board included Illuminati figures William Randolph Hearst and Malcolm McIntyre. Joseph Schenck's brother Nicholas Schenck and Marcus Loew merged Metro Pictures and Goldwyn Pictures, naming Louis B. Mayer as head. Over the years, MCA, led by Illuminati kingpin Lew Wasserman, gained a monopoly over the American film industry through secret backroom deals with Ronald Reagan's Screen Actors Guild and James Petrillo's American Federation of Musicians. Lew Wasserman later tried to revive Reagan's acting career in the early 1960s. Frank Sinatra and Walt Disney were both friends of Ronald Reagan, and all three believed in mind control. Ronald Reagan and Petrillo worked with the Mafia's National Crime Syndicate Council of Nine, which included Anthony Accardo and Sam Giancana, and which once divided the United States into 24 mob territories. After Joseph Schenck was briefly jailed, he was replaced as president of 20th Century Fox by Spiros Skouras. While still in charge, Schenck made several offers to Disney to incorporate his studio as a subdivision of 20th Century Fox. Disney worked for several years with them distributing his films, but he never gave up on trying to remain independent. As the United States entered World War II, the FBI and American intelligence agencies turned to the mob for assistance. It is possible that Walt's mob connections helped facilitate his recruitment. Prior to Pearl Harbor, Walt attended a number of American Nazi meetings. From knowing Walt's personality, this author believes that Walt may have been on assignment rather than a Nazi sympathizer. Still, why does one of Disney's pre-Pearl Harbor cartoons display a swastika? Disney's Epcot Resorts is located near the mob's Atlantic City Boardwalk, famous for its nightclubs. The resort was designed by Robert A.M. Stern. This author is uncertain about Robert Stern, but there are programmed multiples and Illuminati members within the Stern family. At Walt Disney World, the nightclub was initially named Cage and later renamed 8 Tracks. The Comedy Warehouse, a nightclub at Pleasure Island in Walt Disney World that opened on May 1st, 1989, has been accused of employing slave comedians and individuals involved in mind control abuse. On February 11, 1987, the Walt Disney Company was reincorporated in Delaware. Delaware is the only state that allows complete corporate secrecy. No one can discover who truly runs a Delaware corporation, and many other secrets can be hidden under Delaware's corporate laws. Capital Group holds significant shares in Disney, as well as 29% of the shares of the Robert Mondavi Winery at 7801 St. Helena Highway, Oakville, California. Wellington Group and Mellon Bank also hold shares. Behind Capital Group are mob-controlled entities such as DeBartolo Realty Corporation and La Quinta Inns, operated by the Bass family. Sam Bronfman manages Sterling and Monterey Vineyards. Countless individuals have experienced the ruthless, impersonal, controlling, and money-driven side of the Disney Corporation. Likewise, Several journalists have encountered firsthand the secrecy and paranoia that permeate Disney. Most journalists are unaccustomed to such pervasive secrecy. Because Disney has shaped the myths of America for several generations, the public cares more about who runs Disney than other institutions. Since most Americans believe in the image the Illuminati have constructed for Disney, they fervently support its success. Over the years, Walt Disney has developed several clever and reliable methods to acquire land. They purchase land through their executives, large stockholders, and family members of these individuals. After deals are finalized in an area and everything is in place over time, these people transfer the land to Disney. Disney collaborates with government officials and local bankers to secure special arrangements that ensure the company's plans succeed. Once all preparations are complete, the corporation announces its plans and proceeds. This strategy has been used repeatedly. For example, the American History theme park in the Manassas Civil War battlefield area of Virginia, where Disney has acquired 1,800 acres and has access to at least 1,200 more. In November 1994, after a new Virginia governor was elected, the Disney's America project was announced. Virginia immediately approved funding for transportation and infrastructure improvements to make the theme park viable. Disney also established 3 banks in Napa, California. These banks made loans to long-established families in the valley. The trusts and wills for these families were prepared by Stanford University graduates who either serve on the boards of these banks or maintain connections with them. They charge large fees and know every trick to seize estates and living trusts. The Stanford graduates, who maintain ties to intelligence agencies and the mob, use code words like resource, evergreen, and Pacific when setting up their businesses. Numerous landowners in the Napa Valley region live in fear, being pressured and intimidated into selling their land. Disney and the government. Just prior to World War II, the FBI recruited Walt Disney. His job was to spy on Hollywood and anything else that seemed suspicious. Documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, despite heavy redactions, clearly show that Walt Disney became a paid special correspondent asset of the FBI. He reported to FBI agent E. Conroy. In 1954, Walt was promoted to special agent in charge, which meant he supervised others. After leaving the CIA, former Director of Central Intelligence William Hedgecock Webster became a lawyer at the Washington, D.C.-based firm Milbank, Tweed, Hadley, and McCloy. In 1993, when news broke about Walt Disney's FBI involvement, Webster worked with the Disney family to publicly conceal Walt's FBI affiliation. Webster appeared on television and gave interviews spreading the falsehood that Walt was never connected to the FBI. Why the cover-up? One of the many cases Disney was involved in included the investigation into the disappearance and rape of 6-year-old Rose Marie Riddle on January 12, 1961. According to documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, FBI agent W.G. Simon met with special agent in charge Walt Disney in Los Angeles regarding the case. W.G. Simon has publicly denied Walt Disney's FBI involvement, but the documented evidence clearly proves otherwise. Why is it so important to the FBI and CIA to conceal that Walt Disney was an FBI agent? Walt also worked for the CIA, although documentation of this is not publicly available. This author theorizes that the reason the FBI and CIA are so sensitive about revealing Walt's government work is because the network knows how these agencies collaborated to procure children for mind control programming. Because Disney and Disneyland played such an enormous role in mind control, Disney's connection to these agencies, though seemingly minor on the surface, is actually a small fact resting atop a vast, ghastly secret. When World War II began, the government integrated Disney Studios into the war effort. The military paid Disney $80,000 for 20 training cartoons, which cost Disney $72,000 to produce. Disney Studios also created secret films for the military. Mickey Mouse and Goofy cartoons were given war-themed storylines, for example, the Goofy cartoons The Art of Self-Defense from 1941 and How to Be a Sailor from 1944. Perhaps in recognition of Disney's contribution to the war effort, Mickey Mouse was the password used by millions of Allied troops during the massive D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. Walt Disney also produced a cartoon titled The New Spirit, which showed Donald Duck faithfully paying his taxes. This film was highly effective in encouraging Americans to comply with the IRS. In 1946, Disney produced a sex education film for public schools called The Story of Menstruation. For the United Nations, Walt Disney created the It's a Small World attraction for UNICEF at the 1964-65 World's Fair. This attraction was later moved to the Disney theme parks and has been a significant feature in mind control programming. Given the enormous amount of mind control programming that reportedly took place during after hours in secret tunnels beneath Disney parks, as well as in public facilities, it becomes clearer why Russian Premier Nikita Khrushchev was denied a visit to Disneyland by the U.S. government due to security considerations when he visited the United States in September 1959. Khrushchev undoubtedly had his own security detail working in tandem with American security. And intelligence officials apparently did not want the complications of allowing Russians into a major mind control programming site. Some powerful military figures have been connected to Disney films. 2 former commanding officers of the USS Alabama nuclear submarine served as technical advisors for the Disney film Crimson Tide. Walt Disney was closely tied to the U.S. government, and recent disclosures confirm his FBI connection. Walt used his FBI ties to destroy the life of Art Babbitt, who had led the strike against Disney in 1940. Babbitt found that everything he attempted in life after the strike was undermined by some hidden power. Was Walt part of naval intelligence attached to the FBI? Was he involved in the FBI's child procurement and mind control operations? In the 1950s, the Illuminati began organizing covens on the West Coast and solidifying their power, according to several independent sources. Likewise, it is clear that Disney did not wield the influence in 1953 with local governments that it holds today. Walt Disney was unsuccessful in obtaining permission from the city of Los Angeles and the Burbank City Council to construct Disneyland, then called Disneylandia, in the Burbank area. One Burbank councilman told Walt, "We don't want the carny atmosphere in Burbank." Inconsistently, within a few years, the city approved Universal's construction of an amusement park in Burbank, which opened in 1964. Disney then asked the Stanford Research Institute to locate a suitable site for Disneylandia. They identified Anaheim as the location. In recent years, Disney sought to build another amusement park, California Adventure, adjacent to Disneyland. This expansion required changes to the interstate highway, and the Anaheim City Council needed to approve the 55-acre project. In stark contrast to the Burbank City Council's stance in 1953, Anaheim City Council enthusiastically supported the expansion despite significant local opposition. Residents voiced concerns at council meetings, arguing that the city should not take on hundreds of millions of dollars in debt to benefit a corporate giant. Anaheim planned to issue $400 million in bonds for the project. Locals also raised alarms that the public school system in Anaheim was already stretched to the breaking point, even considering half-day schedules. They insisted that the Disney Corporation give as much consideration to the school children of Anaheim as it does to its amusement parks. Disneyland's president, Paul Pressler, boasted about the new California Adventure Park, saying, "Disney's California Adventure is really a celebration of the fun, the beauty, the people, and the accomplishments of this magical state. We really have set out to try to capture a bit of what the California dream is all about." This sounds as if the dream is to be wealthy and control people. The elite would rather offer us bread and circuses than a proper education. The Dragnet films were partially produced at Disney Studios. An office memo dated December 16, 1954, from the new Los Angeles FBI special agent in charge to J. Edgar Hoover, obtained via the Freedom of Information Act, states, "Mr. Disney has volunteered representatives of this office complete access to the facilities of Disneyland for use in connection with official matters. Historically, we now know that Disney's use of official matters included mind control operations." Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in our next video.